Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 41a, top of the page. It's in the middle of an idea, so start from the bottom just to get the idea. The bottom of 40b. The reference here is to the bull for an unwitting communal sin and the goat of Yom Kippur, and this is what Rabbi Yishmael is saying. Just as in the case in which one offering is not equated with another offering, this is a bull and that is a goat, nevertheless the actions of sprinkling the blood in one offering are equated with the actions of the blood in the other offering. With regard to that which is written concerning it, in a case in which one offering is equated with another offering, meaning the bull for an unwitting sin of the anointed priest and for the bull of Yom Kippur, as this is a bull and that is a bull, isn't it logical? Now we're on page 41a, top of the page, with the words Yehoshua ma'asim le'ma'asim, that the actions of sprinkling the blood in one offering are equated with the actions of the blood in the other offering. The blood of the goat of Yom Kippur is sprinkled even inside the Holy of Holies, which is not so concerning the blood of the bull. Nevertheless, with regard to the sprinkling in the sanctuary, which is common to both, their actions are performed in the same manner, with the blood being sprinkled with a finger on the curtain and on the corners of the altar. Yasale pa yom kippurim namila lesbedam b'tfila b'pal kohen Mashiach Yasile seir yom kippurim misiir avodah zara b'kal v'chomer. And by means of this a fortiori, this kal v'chomer, this a fortiori inference, the case of the bull of Yom Kippur is derived from the case of the bull of an unwitting sin of the anointed priest. With regard to the halachot summarized by the words et, in the blood and immersion, as they are both bulls. And likewise, the case of the goat of Yom Kippur is derived from the case of the goats for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship. With regard to the halachot of et, in the blood and immersion, via this an a fortiori inference, as they are both goats. The Gemara asks, how can the halachot of the goat of Yom Kippur be derived from the goats for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship? But does it matter derived by a juxtaposition, which is a hekesh, meaning a halacha that is not written explicitly in the Torah, but that is learned by means of a comparison? Again, teach by by kal v'chomer, an a fortiori inference. There is a principle that a halacha derived by a juxtaposition with regard to consecrated matters cannot subsequently teach another halacha via an a fortiori inference. The halachot alluded to by the words of et in the blood and immersion are not explicitly stated with regard to the goats of unwitting communal sin of idol worship. Rather, they are derived from the comparison found in the verse, and he shall do as he did, Leviticus 4:20, which alludes to the goats for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship and the bull for an unwitting sin of the anointed priest. Rav Papa said the school of Rabbi Yishmael maintains that a matter derived by juxtaposition does again teach by a fortiori inference, even with regard to consecrated matters. Lapar, ze par helem davar. Par helem davar shel tzibur. The Gemara continues to analyze the statement of Rabbi Yishmael with the bull. Par ha'alem davar. Pachelem davar shel tzibur. Ha b'tzibur guvekasi omer v'shum devari. Agmore pachelem davar shel tzibur yoteres ishnikayos yisireh v'zoreh. The Gemara continues to analyze the statement of Rabbi Shmuel in the Braita. With the bull, this is the bull for an unwitting communal sin. The Gemara asks, why is it necessary to derive this case by way of an exposition? This verse itself is written in reference to the bull for an unwitting communal sin. Rav Papa said, the derivation is necessary because Rabbi Shmuel wants the case of the bull for an unwitting communal sin to teach with regard to the burning on the altar of sacrificial portions, including the diaphragm and the two kidneys. That this obligation applies also to the goats for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship, despite the fact that this requirement is not stated with regard to them. Upav helim davar shel tzibur b'gufei v'kasi v'hekei sha'asi yitzterich lapal. Rav Papa continues, and as the obligation to burn the diaphragm and the two kidneys on the altar is not written with regard to the bull for an unwitting communal sin itself, but rather is derived by juxtaposition from the bull for an unwitting sin of the anointed priest, in which this requirement is explicitly stated in Leviticus 4, 8 through 9. It was necessary to include the bull for an unwitting communal sin, once again with the term with the bull. The Gemara elaborates this derivation is required in order that it should be as though this halakha, burning the diaphragm and the two kidneys, was written with regard to the bull for an unwitting communal sin itself. And in this manner, the derivation from this case, teaching the halacha, in the case of the goats for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship, should not be a matter derived by juxtaposition. That again teaches by juxtaposition, as such a derivation is not done with regard to consecrated matters. Tanya kavasidera papa v'osakashi also. Ma tamid lo'malapal. The Gemara comments, it is taught in a Braita, in accordance with the opinion of Rav Papa, and he shall do with the bull as he did. Leviticus 4:20. What is the meaning when the verse states with the bull? It is clear that this verse is referring to the bull. Chatasam al shigagasam amar toira. Chatas varehi lecha kishigasam. The Braita answers, because it is stated with regard to the goats for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship, and they have brought their offering, an offering made by fire to the Lord, and their sin offering before the Lord for their error. Numbers 15:25. And this verse is interpreted as follows. Their sin offering, these are the goats for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship alluded to in that passage. Their error, this is the bull for an unwitting communal sin, which is brought for an inadvertent transgression of the community. The juxtaposition of these offerings in the verse, their sin offering for their error, indicates that the Torah means to say their sin offering is for you like their error, meaning all the portions consumed on the altar in the case for the bull for an unwitting communal sin are also burned on the altar in the case of the goats for an unwitting sin of idol worship. The Gemara asks, with regard to the offering brought for their error, meaning the bull for an unwitting communal sin, from where did you learn this halacha? Was it not via juxtaposition from the bull for an unwitting sin of the anointed priest, as the diaphragm and the two kidneys are not explicitly mentioned with regard to the bull for an unwitting communal sin? But this is difficult, as it doesn't matter to derive via juxtaposition again. teach via juxtaposition. Talmud Lomar Lapal Ze Par Helem Davar Shetzibu Lapal Ze Par Kon Mashiach. Therefore, the verse states, and he shall do with the bull as he did with the bull for a sin offering, Leviticus 4:20. With regard to the first instance of with the bull, this is the bull for an unwitting communal sin. And with regard to the second instance of with the bull, this is the bull for an unwitting sin of the anointed priest. Due to this juxtaposition, it is as though the burning of the diaphragm and the two kidneys was explicitly written with regard to the bull for an unwitting communal sin. And therefore, the halacha can be taught by juxtaposition with regard to the goats for an unwitting sin of idol worship, as stated by Rav Papa. Amama chatosom meilu sirei avodah zareh tebuklei mikol kamo demama achatos lerabo sirei avodah zareh. Amar Rav Papa itzrich sol kedat chamina hani meli hazoris ichsivan bigufei. Just to continue the idea, now we move on to 41b, top. Okay, this is going to continue. It's going to go to the bottom of 41a and continue on to the top of 41b, and then we'll take a break from there. Continue on with the next Amud. The Gemara analyzed the previous bias. So the master said above, their sin offering. These are the goats for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship, which are juxtaposed in this verse to the bull. For an unwitting communal sin, the Gemara asks, but let the times arrive, this from the earlier verse, stated with regard to the bull. For an unwitting communal sin, as the master said, and the bride decided earlier in 39b, a sin offering, Leviticus 4:20, this serves to include the goats for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship. Rav Papa said this derivation was necessary, as if there was only the juxtaposition. From Leviticus 4:20, it would enter your mind to say this matter applies only to the acts of sprinkling which are written with regard to the bull for an unwitting communal sin itself. Now the top of 41b, but with regard to the burning of the diaphragm and the two kidneys, which are not written with regard to the bull for an unwitting communal sin itself, you might say that this halacha should not be derived from it. Therefore, this additional derivation of their sin offering teaches us that the two offerings are similar with regard to this detail as well.